Greetings, happy warriors, and welcome to the Rabbi Daniel Lapin Show, where I, your rabbi, reveal how the world really works. Thanks for being part of the show, and thanks for all you do in getting word of the show out. The regular subscribers numbers keep on climbing, and that's very, very gratifying and very encouraging. It also makes it easier for me to invite prominent guests onto the show as well, which I have started doing a little bit more of. The year is 2025. This is it. This is the first new show, the first show I'm recording by myself on this year, and it's a very interesting thing because in the United States of America in particular, one can hardly be oblivious of the fact that there has been a new increase in optimism. People are feeling better about the future than they have felt for 12 years. And yes, is it due to Donald Trump? Yes, like it or not, it absolutely is. And not only has Donald Trump somehow or another changed the atmosphere in the United States of America, but he's actually being listened to by people all around the world. And I don't think that the history books, when they get written, will differ from me at all when I say that the departure of the Prime Minister of Canada, Mr. Trudeau, is almost directly associated with President Trump needling him and mocking him and mocking what is made of Canada. And that seems to have made people feel, enough is enough. And the governing party in Canada realized that they are bound to lose the next election. And if they remain under the leadership of Trudeau, they will probably lose more than just the next election. And so they got rid of him. And although he hasn't vacated office yet, there's a new atmosphere in Canada. There's a new positive sense. And in England, the appalling government of Mr. Karma, the British Prime Minister, is just quite dreadful. Indeed, the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer's government, in a recent poll, got the lowest rating imaginable. A majority of the British people feel that the government is incompetent and dishonest. So it's a real mess there, and certainly something that we can anticipate getting worse before it gets better. Now, the reality of what's going on here, of course, is best understood if we use a little bit of ancient Jewish wisdom and we explore what the government of Trudeau has done, what the governments of Obama and Biden have done, what the governments of Keir Starmer has been doing, and we look at it in long-term vision. We look at it through what I think of as a biblical lens, helping to understand more clearly. And the resource that works so well for this is something that I'm very excited about because this, for a long time, was one of my favorite resources. It was called Tower of Power, and it explored 9 mysterious verses at the beginning of chapter 11 of Genesis. Out of nowhere, this strange story about a tower and people building this tower and committed to it, and then God not liking what's going on, and he muddles up languages, hence the term Babel, and eventually the work on the tower ceases, and the narrative goes back to what I was talking about before, and that was how it was dealing with. So, what does this resource share? What does it do for us? Well, what it explained is the relationship between the governor and the governed, between the king and the subjects, between whoever is in charge and those who are obey the rules, as it were. And that relationship doesn't exist in a lot of different formats. That relationship tends to be a very simple one based on an evaluation of whether the governed, that means you and me, whether the governed are viewed as stones or whether we're viewed as bricks. Now, it goes without saying that none of this conversation is at all relevant for the purpose of actual building, right? The Bible is giving a spiritual underpinning to what is really going on. It's not telling us that when you build your next home, you should build it with stone rather than with wood, or with wood rather than with brick. It's not doing that. It's giving us a lens through which to view reality. It's helping us understand what is it that distinguished the government of Trudeau. What is it that distinguished the government of Obama and Biden in the United States of America? Not that different from what Trudeau did in Canada. What characterizes the government of Keir Starmer in Great Britain? Again, not that different. There are certain fundamental realities that you will spot in each situation. And let me just tell you folks, all you happy warriors, this is a little bit of an unusual situation. I'm not at my home studio. I'm actually recording this at an airport, waiting for a flight, and the way things worked out, I just wanted to make sure I did get a timely new message out to you today, and this was the only way to do it. So you'll please overlook the occasional interruptions and noises. I will try and edit out where I possibly can, but otherwise there will be background airport noises going on. I hope that is not a harbinger for 2025. I think we'll soon be back to the routine of recording, but I do have a little bit of travel going on right now. So that's what's happening there. Okay, so a while back I do this exciting program called Tower of Power, bringing the relevance of a biblical story in Genesis chapter 11 really onto the front pages of today's newspaper. It was so important that I realized that it needed to be updated. And the reason I said this was because when I recorded it, a number of things were prophetic in a sense. A number of things in the program, Tower of Power, you almost had to take on faith. It was almost, it wasn't necessarily obvious that these things were going on. However, now it's entirely different. Now these things are visible and available to see for anybody with eyes in their head. It is really quite remarkable. And so we've re-released this in video, not audio format, in video format, with a whole lot of updates and a whole lot of additions, making it more relevant than ever for 2025 and beyond. It's a very powerful tool, and I think those of you using it will derive even more benefit than those using the original audio version, which originally came out probably more than 10 years ago. So what are we talking about? What is the first indication? if you want to try and identify whether a government is going to be going in the wrong direction or in the right direction, let me explain. So the curious thing about the way the good Lord created us is that the things we want to do are not necessarily the things that are best for us. We all like eating, but we're all capable of eating more than we need because we enjoy eating. And so there's one example. On a large-scale example, we all like creating governments that are as fair as possible to the most number of people. We come up with meaningless little statements like that. We want it to be fair for the most number of people. And the trouble is that there's no definitional understanding of what the word fair means. And so people automatically, in their own mind, conflate fairness with equality. And so when people utterly abandon all forms of traditional teachings, when people on a large scale governmental level, we try to do the same thing. We try and make as many people happy, and that's what we try and do. The reality is, of course, that this results in almost inevitably in something called wokeism, communism, progressivism, socialism. They're all the same terms applying to different gradations or different levels of intensity of the underlying philosophy. But how do you identify the underlying philosophy? How can you know that despite everything he said, President Obama was pushing for this philosophy? Biden, to whatever extent he was doing anything at all, pushing for the same philosophy. Keir Starmer in England doing it. The Canadians under Trudeau doing it as well. What is this thing? And this is something that is highlighted so beautifully in chapter 11 of Genesis. You see, one of the things that you'll enjoy is how I point out in this program that there are two verses whose natural sequence should be reversed. And I show you the verses and I explain exactly how that works. So I don't want to spoil it for you now, but I will tell you that the two verses are one verse. The first one is an inspirational verse. It's, come on guys, let's do something. Let's do this thing. And the other verse is the mechanism of doing it. Let us build a house. Let us get bricks to build the house, or something along those lines. But the odd sequence is that when you're trying to encourage people to join a large-scale project, and just recently I was listening to the President of the United States, it was President Roosevelt, at the time the Grand Coulee Dam was being built on the Columbia River in eastern Washington. And this was, I think, the largest construction project ever at the time in the United States, and probably in many parts of the world as well, because this was in the 30s. And so ordinarily, if you want to inspire people, you start off with a grand dream. That's what the president did. He spoke about how Grand Coulee Dam was not only going to produce electricity, but it was going to irrigate thousands of acres of semi-arid, semi-desert land in the eastern part of the state of Washington, and it was going to turn it into this agricultural paradise, which it did. And the electricity created, well, He didn't say that that was going to be needed to produce the aluminum that would build the fighter planes to win World War II that was on the horizon. But he didn't have to. The idea of cheap and available energy was enormously appealing. And only after that, did he speak about the bricks and the mortar and the nitty-gritty of building the dam. And sure enough, the dam got built. Well, in chapter 11 of Genesis, oddly enough, Nimrod, who is the biblical character at the heart of the story, oddly enough, tries to enthuse people about the nitty-gritty, about the mechanism, namely bricks. And only after that did he speak about a glorious city with a tower, from which we can conclude that the Nimrods of history see the... Yes, it was clear that the goal was much more than building the tower. The goal was the bricks. And the understanding here is that the goal of all the Nimrods of history, every one of them, is always to convert people from stones into bricks. What am I saying? Well, think about what characterizes a stone. I speak about I've often described the building of the Erie Canal. Just an extraordinary venture in the early 1800s, very early 1800s. You think about what it meant to dig a ditch 40 feet wide by about 5 or 6 feet deep across hundreds of miles of jungle, crossing hills and mountains and rivers, until they'd finally built a canal from the Great Lakes to the Hudson River at Albany. And that canal, after having been enlarged a few times, continues to serve both leisure and commercial interests to the present time. But I'm always astounded by the job of building it, right? There was no dynamite yet. And so the job of moving giant boulders out of the way, the job of cutting down trees and pulling out tree stumps, you think about what this means for men to do this. No hydraulic excavators. And you think about what bricks and stones are. Think about a stone. A stone is characterized chiefly by the fact that it's different from other stones. In fact, in the early days, and I describe this about when forests and fields were colonized and they started preparing them for agriculture, stones had to be gathered. The fields were covered with rocks and stones, and they took them all to the boundary of the field, and skilled stonemasons, that's what a stonemason is, a skilled man who would then use the stones and the rocks, and he would use mortar to join them together into a beautiful stone fence. And there are parts of the United States where you can see that, but it's very common in parts of England where that's exactly what happened. And these stone fences, some of them have been in place for a couple of hundred years, from when the fields were originally agriculturalized. But this is why it takes a very skilled artisan to build a stone fence, because every single stone is different. And so not only does he have to pick up a stone and figure out where it's going to go, but he has to have his eye on the next few stones, and he's got to figure out how they're all going to fit together, because each stone is unique. Another thing about stones, of course, is that stones are created by God, and that's part of the uniqueness of each stone. Bricks, on the other hand, are created by men, and the whole point of a brick is that they're exactly the same as one another, which is very good for things, because when one wants to build, it's ever so much easier to build a wall out of bricks, where every brick is a predictable, standard issue size and weight. than it is to do so out of stone. And so bricks, very advantageous for building, but not advantageous for people. And that's what Chapter 11 is talking about. And it highlights the goal is to, let's build bricks, everybody. Why didn't it say, let's build a glorious city, everybody, and then encourage them, and then they'll get to work? No, missing the point. The whole goal was to turn people into bricks. And here we have one of the most crucial aspects that I lay out in Tower of Power, which, as I say, has just been released in an expanded, updated form in video. And I had a lot of fun doing it, because I revisited and realized how helpful this material is for understanding the times that we are going through, and also helping us understand how necessary it is to spot bright moments and to build on them, to make the most of them. And so when it comes to a Nimrodian government, yeah, of course, they want people in the form of bricks, not in the form of stones. And what you've got to get used to identifying is how much of the policy making of a Nimrodian-style government is focused on making people begin to see themselves as bricks, and for government to treat them and view them as bricks. And so, for instance, when President Obama began his healthcare adjustment, his instituting of Obamacare, admittedly it was so complicated that one lawmaker famously told Americans that we'll have to pass it and make it law before we know what's in it. You know, what an avenue to tyranny, my goodness. But if you do look and see, never mind what it said, but you can just look and see what it's done. It has been to commoditize medicine. And so what that means is that if you are above a certain age, and if not you, then your parents, maybe your grandparents, there are plenty people walking around today who remember feeling that their doctor really cared about. So there was a time when you felt that your doctor really cared about you. But everybody, I think, is familiar today with walking into a doctor's office or wherever you're going, and you're just another number. That's all there is. Nobody really cares about you as a person, and that is really a prime characteristic of a society that is devolving towards a Nimrodian society. And as I say, whether you call it hardcore communism like in North Korea or the old Soviet Union or Cuba, or whether you speak of it as progressivism as we saw in Canada, or whether you call it wokeism or whatever you call it, it's always the same thing. It's only just a matter of degree. And it should be very helpful, I hope, for you to be able to get used to examining public policy, examining exactly what it is that politicians are advocating, and ask yourself, does it move the population towards being bricks, or does it restore us towards being stones? But here's the key thing. The key thing is that now is not the time to relax. Whether you're in Canada or America or Great Britain or any of the other countries that are similarly impacted in one way or another, now is the time to develop and focus on your 5 F's and on anything that you can do to join with like-minded people to encourage the return towards stones rather than bricks. And this was really one of the main things that I favored Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton for in 2006. 2016, I'm sorry. And the reason is because he is a stone kind of guy. He's not a brick kind of person. And I was hoping that indeed he would see the value in stone people. And indeed, in the cabinet picks so far, he's been nominating people who are definitely stone rather than brick people. In his appointment of his appointment of Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy for the Department of Efficiency. Again, these are brick people, not stone people. These are stone people, not brick people. And the more encouragement there is for each one of us, one of the ways this will manifest itself, you are in a brick type government environment if they make it very hard for you to start a business. Why would it be hard for you to start a business? Well, they don't want you to achieve independence. One of the characteristics of a stone is it is a stone. It's interesting in and of itself. A brick isn't interesting in and of itself. It's only interesting when it joins with hundreds of other bricks and becomes a structure. But every stone is unique and every stone is different. And so it is that every business is different, and starting a business is an exciting venture. And it's something that stones will want to do. But a brick-type government won't want you to be doing it at all. They'll be doing everything they can to stop you trying to build a business. And so by spotting all these various characteristics of stone culture versus brick culture, you are able to equip yourself. And so one of the so the thing that I focused on with such excitement in Tower of Power, because it's so stark, it really hits you in the head full on, is that Nimrod focuses not on building the tower in the city. His focus is on building bricks. And that is exactly what he's telling you. He's telling us that every type of Nimrodian governor and government is going to be focused on turning the population into a large number of bricks and eliminating any notion of independence, uniqueness, and specialness about each and every person. And it's important to be able to spot that, and it's important, perhaps even more important right now, if you're in one of the countries involved, to spot a turnaround, to spot that there actually is a pause and that there is a slowdown in the move towards bricks, and this is an opportunity to regain the stone quality of ourselves, our beings, our lives, and indeed of our families, of our finances, of our friendships, of our faith, and of our fitness. All of these things do better when we recognize our own individual God-given uniqueness, and when we recognize that the forces of government, the forces of universities, almost synonymous with government today, the forces of much of popular culture being co-opted by government today, is to force us all into the brick mode. But by resisting that, if you can stay clear of that, and you are able to actually overcome it and to focus on your own stone-like qualities, your uniqueness, and your families, and your friends, and those whom you do business with, everything obviously will run a whole lot more smoothly and a whole lot more pleasurably. So, friends, that is the message for today. I want you to really try and go along to the website, rabbidaniellapin.com, and take a look at the Tower of Power, the new released video version, the updated version, the expanded version. You're going to love it. I loved making it, and I love reviewing it. You're going to love the way the slides work in the text so as you can see what's going on. And you'll love the feeling of insight and control it gives you. All of a sudden, you know what it's going to be like? If you're driving along and your GPS hasn't been working, let's say, or you've been driving along and you suddenly realize, hey, wait a sec, I can turn on my GPS. And all of a sudden, there's great clarity. You now can see where you are, where you're supposed to be going, what you're supposed to be doing. That is what Tower of Power is intended to be. It's meant to be a spiritual GPS for our interactions with government and our society and our institutions of government that today play such a huge role in every aspect of our lives. So please go ahead and do that. Let me know how you love it, please. And have an exciting few days with it, as you will, with your family and your finances, your faith, your friendships, and your fitness. I'm Rabbi Daniel Lapin. God bless.